ghost cat. I wonder what Uncle Axel was hiding anyhow. That's not me reading, it's just me asking the question. I can't wait to find out what is happening. What happened? Number 7. Here we go. Okay. Rain began pattering on the roof sometime during the night. It rained all the next day and night, and all the day after that. I bet those boys are up to something out there in the barn, Donna grumbled at bedtime. They think they're safe because nobody wants to check on them in the wet. I should have brought my swimsuit after all. Annabelle was already comfortably settled against piled-up pillows with a book on dog training she had found in the living room bookcase. "Well, how come you didn't bring a suit?" she asked, mildly surprised. "I thought there were going to be all kinds of lakes around here and public beaches." What the hell? Who said that? I was wrong. I misunderstood who the speaker was. Alright, so let's try again. Boy, this is going to be a long and drawn-out reading, huh? This is real life, baby. Annabelle was already comfortably settled against piled-up pillows with a book on dog training she had found in the living room bookcase. "Well, how come you didn't bring a suit?" she asked, mildly surprised. "I thought there were all kinds of lakes around here and public beaches." "Well, there are. There's even a neat little lake on this property, way back. Kind of muddy, but fun." Donna pulled back her bedclothes and slid into bed. "But we can't go in when Todd's here because the water makes his asthma worse." "Why can't you go without him?" "He goes off and does his own thing without you anytime he feels like it." "I know, but..." Donna didn't have to finish the thought. Annabelle knew too. Todd's mission in life was to make other people's lives as miserable as possible, and he worked at it with a will. Like last night. She'd been startled out of sleep by the crying of a cat. Body rigid, heart pounding, she'd stared into the darkness, every nerve taut to hear above the pleating of the rain on the roof. Then she heard Todd cough near the foot of the stairs, and soon after, Aunt Lil murmuring to him, ushering him back to bed, fetching him cough syrup or something from the bathroom. The cat didn't cry again. If that didn't prove who'd been mewing, she could hardly miss reading the truth in the sly glances Todd kept slanting at her all day today. She'd said nothing, since it would only be her word against his, but that didn't change what she knew. Her hand slipped up under the pillow to touch the smooth, cool case of old Pa's compass. She couldn't prove either that Todd had sneaked up here yesterday to rummage through her things, or that the compass was what he had been looking for. But it would take a great deal to convince her otherwise. Don't you hate it when you know something but nobody else believes you, and you're like, but I saw it, I saw Bigfoot, and they immediately have to ridicule the very idea that you saw Bigfoot, but as far as you know, you saw something. You might not know what it is, but you saw something. And it's just unfair to just gang up on somebody. It's not true. Look. Grandma's digressing again. She's digressing. Do. "I'd take it as a favor if you did keep it," Aunt Lil said, when Annabelle told her of the gift. "It has been a long time since old Pa showed much interest in anything as he did in hunting that thing up for you. You're a sweet girl to be patient with him." If looks could kill, Todd's glare would have shriveled Annabelle on the spot, but he had walked off without comment. Then, yesterday, yesterday evening when Annabel came upstairs. She was struck by the rumpled appearance of the bedroom. The rumpled appearance of the bedroom. A drawer or two not tightly shut, a sweater on the floor in the corner of the throw rug kicked up. These she might have never given a second thought. Neatness was not her strongest point. But when she tripped over the shoe that Uncle Axel had returned to her, it was a different matter. That shoe had no business being out in the open. She had purposely kicked it, and its mate as far under the dresser as they would go, wanting to never see them again. Merely dangling the missing shoe between a thumb and a finger to carry it upstairs made her skin crawl. And it went on crawling until she had scrubbed her hands twice with soap and a brush. But there the shoe sat, in plain view on the little rug. Half a piece of it was the toe of... Half a pace behind it was the toe of the other one poking from under the dresser as if the two sneakers had been halted in mid-step. Aunt Lil, supposing her dust mop might have rooted them from their exile, wouldn't have just left them wherever they happened to land. Neither was it Donna's way to leave things scattered about. Who else but Todd? And why else but to take or tamper with the compass he resented her for having? Todd's not too bad in some ways, Donna said without lot of conviction. He's got worse problems than asthma, my dad always says. It didn't take much genius to figure that out, Annabel reflected. She squared the dog training book on her knees. Maybe one of them's those fancy cowboy boots. He sure acts like they pinch. All other things wrong with him besides... Yeah, maybe one of them problems is those fancy cowboy boots. He sure acts like they pinch. Donna giggled, nestling herself under her covers. It's a side effect of his medication. Aunt Marina, his mom, says. He's maybe not growing as fast as he should. Boots help him look taller. Annabel was in no mood to dredge up sympathy for Todd on any account. I should have such a side effect. Donna curled on her side, her head propped on a hand. You shouldn't put yourself down like that. You'd look really nice if you didn't slouch so much. When you forget about being tall and stand up straight, you've got a lot going for you. Annabel sent a skeptical glance along the length of her narrow contours under the green sprigged blanket. Sure, if you're into flagpoles. But she straightened her shoulders, aware that they hunched automatically as she spoke. Donna made a face. How about being a sawed-off barber pole? She sighed. The worst of it is, he's probably right. I'm too short for wide belts. They make me look mostly all middle. He was just being smart, Annabel objected. That's a great-looking belt. It would be perfect on you. Kind of cut your height. It would kind of cut your height. Donna sat up, tossing the bedclothes aside. Why don't I pull it out for you so that you can try it on tomorrow and see if you like it, it's yours? Well, okay, thanks, Annabel said, more taken by the friendliness of her offer than by any faith in the cosmetic possibilities of the belt. I'll try it. She seldom wasted thought on what she wore beyond whether it was clean in a respectable state of repair, and in a respectable state of repair. To expect her clothes to do more for her than provide a decent covering was like asking a coat of paint to transform a ladder into a marble staircase. Donna was paddling in and out of the shadows beyond the light of the two bedside lamps. I've put it over here on your dresser. Then, ouch! She sat down abruptly on the floor, grasping one bare foot in both hands. Annabelle let her book fall shut. "What happened? Stub your toe on something?" "On your sneaker! Only it felt more like it kicked me." And in fact, Donna was cradling her ankle, not a toe. The hairs pricked along Annabelle's arms as she got out of bed. "There shouldn't be any sneaker there." "Oh, I know there shouldn't." Donna gave her ankle a final rub before she stood up. "It seems to me I shoved that shoe back out of the way just a little while ago." Annabelle ignored the possible hint that her housekeeping habits left something to be desired. Her eyes were on the sneaker lying in front of the dresser. It was not one of those blue and white pairs she had worn today. It was a red-trimmed black one she'd meant never to wear again. It was the sneaker she had tripped over yesterday that lay exactly where it is now. A good 6 inches from the dresser. It was supposed to be under. And there was the toe of the other shoe, just poking into sight, both of them pointed toward her bed. The prickling on her arm spread upwards to the nape of her neck. "You don't mean it was the same sneaker you shoved back?" she said. "It had to be a different one." Donna shrugged. "Maybe, but it was a black one." She nudged the offending sneaker with her foot, then frowned. "No, it was this same one. I remember the scrape marks on the heel." The marks were familiar to Annabelle, too. They were fresh, raw scrapes, etched in the rubber by something sharp, like the splinters of a broken door seal. "I didn't leave it there, but this is twice it's been out here," she said in a voice that wanted to whisper. "3 times if you shoved it back, too. It doesn't seem to want to stay put." She and Donna stared at each other in the half-light of the lamps created at this end of the big room. Donna forced a giggle. "Well, we know it can't be walking out by itself. It must be the floor's warped under the dresser or something, and stuff gets jiggled forward when we go by. Otherwise, it should have followed you home instead of waiting for Grandpa to bring it." Annabelle began to grin. Put that way, her qualms didn't sound stupid. Besides, there was still her Todd theory to account for. At least one of the shoe appearances. It would have Uncle Axel's claim that he had found the shoe in the bedroom. Unexplained distance from the kitchen door seal. Perhaps Donna, too, harbored a small doubt, for she added, "Why don't you shut them in a drawer so they have to stay put?" "That's a super idea!" Annabelle dropped immediately to tug open the dresser's heavy-bottomed drawer. So far she had stored nothing of hers in it, particularly 2/3 of the space was already taken up by an extra blanket, and partly because the capacious upper drawers provided all the storage space she needed. Also, the bottom drawer tended to stick and came open only under protest. It was the perfect place for the troublesome sneakers. Except for one thing. Now she was going to have to handle them again, pick them up. Kicking them out of the way wouldn't work this time. Gingerly, she reached for the further one and tossed it in. Then, her fingers clumsily with repugnance. Okay. Then, her fingers clumsy with repugnance, which means to be disgusted, but you doing what you need to do anyway, but you're disgusted. Well, like cleaning up dog poop. She made herself lift the scarred one and let it fall beside. She made herself lift the scarred one and let it fall beside its mate. But the creepy feeling wasn't there. If anything, her hand felt pleasantly warmed. Donna knelt with her to help wrestle the unwilling drawer closed. By the time the job was done, a tide of drowsiness was flooding Annabelle. All at once, she was as sleepy as though someone had fed her another one of old Paul's tranquilizers. It was as much as she could do to straighten her pillows and switch off her light when she climbed back into bed. She exchanged a yawning good night with Donna and was asleep before the thought, more than half formed, that she should raise her head for a last look at the drawer to be absolutely certain it was tight shut. Before the thought more than half formed that she should raise her head and at least and for a last look at the door to make sure it's shut. Okay. Swiftly, though, sleep came. However, it was no blanket of oblivion. Several times during the night she was roused by an impression of odd noises and stirrings in the room. Once she even fancied Donna must be opening the reluctant drawer, but each time when she came awake enough to focus on the sounds, there was nothing, and she slid easily back into sleep. The voice at first was only another annoyance nibbling at the edge of her consciousness, someone calling her. She moaned a complaint and tried to wrap herself tighter in the cocoon of sleep, but the calling persisted. Annie! 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 Not just someone. It was her mother calling. Annabelle rolled over and sat up. How could her mother be here? This wasn't 4th of July. And what was she doing down in the yard, calling up to Annabelle's window? And why Annie? Her mother never called her that. Annabelle didn't stop to puzzle. She was already seeking her slippers with her feet, cramming herself into her robe. Next, she was hurrying down the stairs in the gloom of earliest light. It did not strike her as strange that no one else seemed to have been awakened yet by her mother's arrival. As she crossed the silent living room, she became aware of mewing. Not the wail of a lost cat in the woods, but glad little chirps, of the sort Muffin used to greet her with. Muffin! Her heart jumped, as she flung open the door to the porch. There stood her mother, Muffin in her arms. Muffin, who was not dead, but had merely strayed, and now was found and brought back to her. Annabelle ran forward, arms outstretched, as the golden white cat leapt to meet her, muttering mews of delight. But it wasn't Muffin. In the instant Annabelle stooped to gather it up, it became a gray cat, a fluffy silver gray cat, with a white M on its face. And that wasn't her mother waiting for her in the gray mist shadows. It was an older woman, taller and heavier, her face framed in the waves of carefully puffed white hair. No matter. The cat was purring rapturously in Annabelle's arms as if it belonged there, and she wanted desperately for it to belong, to be hers, a creature to love again and be loved by. The woman smiled and nodded, a grandmother's smile. Promising cookies. Let me read that correctly. A grandmother's smile, promising cookies. She beckoned to Annabelle to follow her. Annabelle followed, understanding that in this way the cat would become hers. They crossed the wet lawn under dripping trees without speaking. Annabelle bent her cheek to the cat's silky head, noting little else until gravel crunched under her feet. She was on the drive, but not Uncle Axel's. His drive was paved with smooth blacktop. The woman glimmered ahead of her, gliding on toward a mist-veiled shed. A garage, perhaps? A barn? Annabelle hesitated. Where was she? Somehow she had traveled too far in just a few steps. Annie. Annie! The woman invited in a voice as light as a whisper. Light as a current of air stirring, as the sigh of an old house settling. The shed drawers, folded open, were clearly visible behind her, and through her. "No," Annabelle gasped. She couldn't find breath to scream, "No!" She tried to back away, but her feet were rooted. Oh, well, I said it wrong, but it worked out just the same. I love you. The woman should I check it or should I wait? I don't know. It's important. I mean, it's not important. It's important actually, but it's not like now important. Okay. No. She couldn't find breath to scream. She tried to back away, but her feet were rooted. The woman's smile widened, showing all her teeth, hungry teeth, a gleaming death's head grin. "Annie." Annabelle's foot began to slide forward. She couldn't stop it. The other foot shuffled past the first. One step, another, a third. Her feet were carrying her slowly closer to the horror awaiting her. She stared down at her feet and the sneakers on them. Sneakers that in her haste she had mistaken for slippers. Black sneakers that had not stayed safely shut away in the drawer where she and Donna had put them. The cat evaporated into mist, wailing, as Annabelle flung herself on the gravel, tearing at the shoes. She wrenched them off. She hurled them from her. "Annie!" Skeleton arms clad in shreds of rotten fabric reached out for her, lengthening and clawing. Annabelle scrambled to escape. Bony fingers bit into her shoulder. Others snatched at her robe. Grinning jaws, enormous, expanding, opened above her to take her in. "Annabelle! Annabelle! Look at me! Can't you see me, Annabelle?" The whispers swirled around her like mist. She seemed to be in two places at once, struggling for breath. There were other voices. Donna's. "Michael, don't! She's walking in her sleep. You're not supposed to wake up sleepwalkers. You could hurt them." "Bull!" A third voice, rude, nasal, and all too familiar. A stinging slap landed between Annabelle's shoulders. "Come off it, Clarabelle. What are you trying to pull?" The ground shifted subtly under Annabelle's bare feet. Wet gravel became cool linoleum. She blinked in the brighter-than-daylight brilliance of a fluorescent light overhead. The puffy moon of Todd's face was staring up at her. Michael and Donna were ranged beside him, wide-eyed, watchful, wondering. And they were all of them in Aunt Lil's kitchen. "Where?" Annabelle gazed around the room, not quite believing the grisly old woman could have retreated altogether. "Right on, Clarabelle. Play it to the hilt." Todd switched into a breaching falsetto. "Oh, where am I? What happened?" "Hush. Not so loud, or you'll have Grandpa down here," Donna whispered. "It's only 5 o'clock. Michael hitched at the waistband of his undershorts, which, along with his undershirt, were all he was wearing. "Were you really asleep? Your eyes were open." "I was outside," Annabelle said uncertainly. "There was a woman. She called me to come out, and we went across the yard." She clenched her hands on the edge of a counter behind her as a wave of trembling swept her. "You were sleepwalking," Donna said. "You were dreaming. I could tell when you got up, so I got up too." She combed her fingers through her trembling hair. "I knew because Michael used to sleepwalk too. When I was little and we just moved in, Michael said, out defensively. "It wasn't tonight. Ricky woke me up howling, and then I got up to see why Todd was banging around, and I saw a light down there, and I came down." "It wasn't me banging around, it was them." Todd pointed a half-eaten donut at the two girls. Without his cowboy boots and swathed in wine-colored bathrobe fastened around his middle by a tassel cord, he looked more squat and pudgy than ever. The thumping and stamping up there like a herd of buffalo. "I was about to come up there and drop in on you dumb turkeys." Annabelle pulled her pulled a chair out from the table. She had to sit down until her legs stopped shaking. Too much was pelting at her too fast. Could it be that she was the only one this night who hadn't been awake? An open carton of milk stood on the table, 3 more donuts beside it, but she saw no sign of a drinking glass. Probably Todd had been guzzling straight from the carton, the pig. Somehow, that observation served to steady her a bit. Could it have only been a nightmare? She would like to believe that, even though she could still almost feel a rain mist on her skin and the jab of gravel under her feet. She pushed her hair back from her temples. It was damp, quite damp. But that could be from perspiration. There was nothing remarkable about waking in a cold sweat after a bad dream. She groped in the pocket of her robe for a tissue to dab the moisture from her forehead. I heard somebody shuffling and bumping too, Donna was saying, but it wasn't us. You sure didn't sneak upstairs anyway. If I had wakened... Okay. That boo's getting tired, but this has been a long read. How long? Okay, it's not that much longer. But dang diddly. It's been pretty long. It's alright. I heard somebody shuffling and bumping too, Donna was saying, but it wasn't us. You sure you didn't sneak upstairs anyway? If I'd waked up enough to turn on the light. She broke off on a note of alarm. Hey, Annabelle, you all right? Annabelle was transfixed by what had slipped out of her pocket with the tissue. It was a photograph, a black and white snapshot of a woman who stood resting her hand on the shoulder of a younger girl with a large, pale cat in her arms. The woman was stout, white-haired, smiling possessively. That's her, Annabelle breathed. Her mouth was so dry she could hardly shape the words. She was outside on the porch. She was real, but then she was horrible. Donna reached across the table to see. Who is she? That girl. That's not you, is it? When did you ever wear your hair short and curly like that? That's not me, Annabelle said fiercely. She pushed the picture from her, as if by rejecting it she could change the fact that the girl caressing the cat did indeed have her face. I don't know who she is. I don't know who either one of them is. Obviously it's not you, Clarabelle, Todd said, returning to his donuts after a glance at the photo. That one would have to stand on tiptoe to see the upstairs window. Besides which, the picture has to be over 40 years old. It's one of the prints Michael made from one of those old negatives he swiped from the Craig cottage. And you guys doctored it up with Annabelle's face because of the cat, and then left it where she'd find it to make her feel creepy? Donna glared from him to her brother, fists planted on her hips. Very funny, Michael. Really hilarious what you've accomplished. Annabelle's heart began to slow its crazy racing. Some of Todd's stupid jokes, of course. A picture glimpsed, perhaps too drowsily for her to remember, but clearly enough for her strung-out nerves to weave its elements into a grotesque nightmare that actually lifted her from her bed to her feet. We didn't doctor it, Michael said indignantly. That's what's so weird about it. He turned to his cousin. But you said you wouldn't show it. You promised. I said I wouldn't show Grandpa. Todd tilted the milk carton to his mouth and downed 2 noisy swallows. Not that he couldn't find them himself, the way he... Not that he couldn't find them himself, the way you got them laying all over the place out in the barn. And I didn't show Clarabelle. If she's got it, she picked it up herself. It was in my pocket, Annabelle said. I don't know how it got there. but she was chilled by a memory of the fleshless fingers clawing at her robe, at her pocket. And the barn. Did they have folding doors anywhere? An apron of gravel? Suddenly she knew no power on earth could persuade her to go upstairs right now and check to see if those black sneakers still lay snug and dry at the bottom of the drawer. Don't forget, I heard footsteps in our room, Donna said. She was accusing Todd, but the image of black sneakers that moved on their own struck Annabelle's mind. Todd's grin neither confessed nor denied. You're getting as flaky as her. Annabelle barely heard him. Something else was quivering at the edge of her mind, like a page about to be turned. Over 40 years ago. She dreaded to turn that page, but even more to leave it unturned. Slowly, she took up the picture again. When she raised her eyes, old Pa in a robe and slippers was in the kitchen doorway. It was almost as if she had expected he would be there. She stood up, holding the picture out to him. Can you tell me who this is? Old Pa peered briefly at the photograph and nodded. The old one. That's Julia Craig. Todd expelled a derisive hiss, but Annabelle made a flattening gesture with her hand that silenced him. The other one? The girl? Who is she? As if somewhere deep down she didn't already know. Old Pa studied the picture more intently. That's Julia's girl that she raised. Niece it was. Named out of a book. Named... He pushed his glasses higher on his nose, squinting as if the answer might be written on the photo. Annie, they called her. Annie Craig. The one that run off with Walter Peterson.